So one question I'm sure that's been asked throughout the years, if not decade or so, if plus that is, pro wrestling, is can you believe anything Dave Meltzer says? And the reason I'm bringing this up is because it seems, and I say this in my own opinion, unbiased and all that. But it seems that ever since the arrival of AEW, and even before then, with New Japan really, coming into its own, and then, Ring of Honor at that time as well, even to an extent Impact, it seems that in the eyes of several, if not many people, Meltzer seems to be very biased towards the likes of an AEW, towards the likes of a New Japan, towards the likes of an Impact and a PWG and all that. And some would say it's because the Bucks, basically named one of the finishers, the Meltzer driver, after him, and thus pretty much it won him over to their side. To where, if anything is critically bad in the eyes of others, he won't say anything. Like, he'll try to find the good in it, if you will. And this has been a question that people have been wondering: is he? Can you believe a word he says, especially when it comes to reporting news? It's like with, AEW news and New Japan news and all that, he seems to be very almost, not totally, but almost on the nose. But when it comes to WWE, it sounds like when he's reporting the news there, he tries to make it sound like, WWE's the bad guy, and he's trying to encourage, like, whoever is in the news alongside WWE to contractually head elsewhere. Like, there's a report going around that he's saying that later this month there'll be more releases coming from WWE, in addition to what we had already. Now, whether or not you believe a word, of that report or that rumor that he's hearing, that's up to you. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people probably, are coming to the conclusion in their own opinion that the only reason Meltzer would be the first to say that is because there are names floating about whose contracts will expire in the next several months. But like I said before, when it comes to some of these contracts and these assumptions of where that person could end up next if they are released or their contract expires and they decide to part ways, it's like I said about the whole Kyle O'Reilly situation. You can't, that basically these assumptions, they make you look bad. They make, the company you're hoping them to be part of look bad, and it makes the wrestling, fan base, internet, IWC and YWC, YouTube, if you will, look bad in general, because you always assume before it actually happens. And when you hear Meltzer saying that, oh, this is all going to happen again, this month, 10 more releases, you got to pretty much take that with a grain of salt. Like, he's assuming. Like, maybe he's hearing a rumor and he's assuming there's going to be more releases, and then maybe in his own eyes he's hoping for certain people to be released so that within a month, they could head to All Elite or they could head to Impact, where they, basically where their talents will be more, I guess in the eyes of him and others, more appreciated. But, that's the thing. Whether or not, what he's hearing is true is up in the air. There have been some times, and this is historically noted, that in the past decade or so, where he'll report something and that report will not be true, and then he'll have to come out and try to cover his tracks by saying, oh, well, that's what I heard from a rumor standpoint, but not a legitimate standpoint. Like, he'll try to come up with some kind of excuse in the in the eyes of a lot of people that pretty much take anything he says with a grain of salt, because he's very pretty much in the know with when it comes to the AEW news and things like, people like the Bucks and Omega and Rhodes and all that. So, it does. So basically, being in that area, it makes, what he reports, even about WWE and other promotions, not so trustworthy or reliable. It's basically like if you have someone like Sean Ross Sapp coming around and saying, yeah, what Meltzer's reporting about 10 more releases, that is indeed true. If you have him confirming it, who, this is a person, Sean Ross Sapp, who is more believable and more reliable in the news. If you hear him coming out and saying that, and backing up what Meltzer had to say, then yeah, maybe you do need to take that very seriously and see exactly who could be next on the chopping block. But that's the thing. we don't know whether or not what Meltzer said about 10 more releases could be true, because we haven't heard Sean Ross Sapp say anything. We haven't heard, Alvarez, who's an AEW guy as well, in a sense, say anything. We haven't heard any news. We haven't heard from the guy that's very, very close to the situation that talked about, the whole Danielson appearing in All Out, situation, or debuting in All Out a lot sooner than Arthur Ashe. We haven't heard from him because, say anything about, anything, any kind of releases that potentially could happen in WWE, or any former released talent now, ex-released talent that could be in negotiations with All Elite Wrestling. So you have to look at what Meltzer is saying, and you have to wonder whether or not he's just saying that to start up controversy, to get people talking and wondering, or if he's just saying that because he's hoping this happens and that the next stop would be AEW. You have to wonder that. And again, I'm not saying this to, be against Dave Meltzer. I know he's a respected, journalist, controversial at times or whatever, that's been in the business for years. I mean, if you go back and watch Dark Side of the Ring's Season 3 finale, they show him on the Donahue show sitting right next to Vince McMahon and telling Vince, hey, you told me something else, not what you're trying to say here. So yeah, he's been in the business for a while, and he, like I said, he has been a very polarizing, controversial figure, because you don't know whether or not the news he's reporting is reliable, or if it's, fabrication, or it's assumption. So that does bring up the question people have asked for years, if not the past decade or so, more so than ever, is can you trust a word coming out? Basically, can you trust anything Dave Meltzer reports or says? Can you trust him? Because again, it sounds like he's more of an AEW biased supporter than he is an unbiased wrestling journalist. But, that's just, several people's opinions. I'm just asking it because, again, I have nothing against Meltzer. He earned the respect and reputation he's had throughout, his career in wrestling. But the thing is, when people compare him to, let's say, Bill Apter or Sean Ross Sapp of even today, they would say that the other two are more reliable in the news reports than, Meltzer is, because they don't know whether or not he's just saying it to stir up trouble, or he does have some kind of knowledge that basically nobody else knows of. Because he's in the know when it comes to AEW. But what do you guys think? Do you think we should trust anything that comes out of Dave Meltzer's mouth? Or do you think maybe we should wait and see what others have to say to either back it up or debunk it? What are your thoughts? Comment below, live chat during the premiere, which I hopefully you have. Like the video. Check me out at BW Rose's Discussions on all your favorite audio podcast locations except for Pandora. Also check me out at BW Roses on VENMO. Also check me out at my Patreon at BW Roses. And check out my VENMO as well if you want to help donate in one of those two areas to help me out financially. But again, let me know what your guys' thoughts are. Do you think we should believe anything Meltzer says? Or do you think we should wait and be patient until others either confirm it or debunk it? Let me know down below and in the live chat during the premiere. And I'll talk to y'all later.